Christians did.
Okay, technical difficulties. Yeah, I've never set up this kind of thing before, so I apologize for being a little technically different.
Well, we don't usually get this many people in one spot either trying to do voice chatting games, so.
It's great that people care, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so where were we? So I asked about the craze. Oh, so now that you have a larger team, I'm assuming, do y'all have your own office, or are y'all, it's all working from separate areas of the country?
We're all 100% remote. So basically, actually, Robert and I live about an hour apart, so sometimes we work together in the same area, but most of everyone else on the team is actually spread throughout the whole world, actually. So we've got everywhere from New Zealand, Canada, United States. Our newest artist is he's somewhere in Asia. I want to say Thailand. I'm not 100% sure on that, though. Maybe Taiwan. So, yeah, it's like a worldwide team, which is pretty cool. So one of the magic of the internet. So we can all work remotely, which is great. So
great. Okay. Okay. What are some lessons you've learned so far from early access that you wasn't expecting? What's some stuff that really surprised you from this process? Because I know it's very different than any game you've ever made before.
Yeah. Let me think about that for a second. What has surprised me about early access? I definitely think that there are things I wanted to try in the game that I thought would work that haven't worked out super great, or that were more important than maybe I didn't assign as much importance to. A really good example of that is just the art style of the game in general. So, if anybody was back in the original alpha when we had like the low poly graphics and the small low poly trees and all that stuff, I was just like, okay, well, let's just get something going, and people will probably be okay with it, even if the graphics aren't the best, because it's cool and it's in VR and whatever. But the graphics are really important for immersion, and that's kind of something that the teams, I think, I've learned, and so that's why now, like, literally, I think 75% of people on the team are artists, because we're that's something we're really committed to getting doing a lot better now in the future. Other than that, I mean, I've just been really happy and surprised, like I said, by the amount of people that have supported the game, bought the game, played the game. Obviously, that was a surprise to me. I didn't know at the beginning if it was going to be successful or not, so that's been great. But yeah, I would say those are, I guess, two things. I mean, I'm sure there's lots, but that's off the top of my head, two of them.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say, like, we're as the community's mentioned. I know I've mentioned it. Actually surprised that, like, it seems like the most obvious thing to make an MMO in VR. I mean, we've been talking about it for decades before VR existed, but this game is really the one that it's not just a flat screen game made into another game. Like, it's made from the ground up, and it's like no other game I think I've ever played.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, I think a lot of people would have said we were crazy when we started off to do this with a small team. And, originally when we did the Kickstarter campaign, I think we had 3 people on the team. It was me, Robert, and Elijah. So, I mean, and we probably were a little crazy, but, it's worked out okay.
Okay. So, speaking about the team, so, is there outside investments, or is this purely funded by Kickstarters and the money you're making from sales?
I invested a little bit of money in it to get it kind of off the ground, but other than that, we haven't had any outside investments. Just been 100% the Kickstarter campaign, and then sales from the game reinvested into the game itself. So, and I mean, we've really, I still have not actually taken a salary to work on the game at this point. I mean, I could if I wanted to. The game has made enough money that I could, but I think it's really important that we reinvest as much of the money as possible that we made on the game so far back into making the game better for everybody. So that's why you see us putting out this major update for free, and that's why I'm still taking a salary, because I really want the game to succeed, and I really want the community's resources that they've given us to be, wisely reinvested in the game. And not that paying myself a salary isn't a wise investment, but, I can do without one for now, so that's fine. So that's what I'm doing. So.
Awesome. Okay, so now moving on to the current state of the game. Is this, I know it's been asked before, but will this version of the game be cataloged or archived in some way to maybe make a comeback for some kind of like classic throwback server in the future or something like that?
I mean, I can't. I'm not going to rule anything out 100%. I mean, but I would say if that happening is very, very unlikely in the near term. I mean, certainly I'll make a copy of all the source code and the game assets and everything. We did start a completely new Git repository for the client for the new version, so it's a separate project if that makes sense. So we'll definitely keep it around on a disk somewhere, but we don't have the resources to run two completely different versions of the game, and I don't think, splitting up the community like that also doesn't make a whole lot of sense at this point in the games, But sure, for posterity, I'm definitely going to hold on to it, and who knows, maybe 10 years from now there'll be a computer museum somewhere that's going to want a copy of it. I don't know. So.
The first VR MMO, yeah. 10 years down the road, when it's a much bigger MMO, people will be running private servers. You never know.
Right. Yeah, maybe.
All right, so there's 2 more sprints scheduled for this current version. Are they still coming on the same schedule?
We made that schedule knowing we were already coming out with Reborn. So we've been working on Reborn internally now for 3 to 4 months. So when I made that schedule for Q3, those sprints, I already knew, we were already, half the team was already working on Reborn. I already knew when we were going to announce it. I knew, when we wanted to come out. So, and that's why you'll notice on those sprints, everything that's a sprint that's coming out right now is something that's going to completely transfer to the new version of the game, right? Where it's, level scaling, LFG queuing, all that stuff, the pet system enhancements, those are all things that are literally going to translate directly into the new game. So we kind of did that on purpose. So really what you're seeing is some of those are pieces of technology we need for the new game, like the level scaling, and we're just going to basically roll it out into the old game and get it tested now while we can, and then we'll be ready to go for the new version. So, but yeah, those are still coming on the same schedule that we announced.
Awesome. So, I have Defend the Realm. Any sneak peek?
Yeah, we'll have a lot. Yeah, we'll have a lot more details on that next week. But basically, this is going to be like if you've ever played WoW and you played in during the days when they had the AQ, the Encourage event where you had to open the gates of Encourage, and it was sort of like a server-wide resource drive and events and stuff going around that. It's going to be similar. Basically, it's going to be a combination of that, and also, since everyone now knows the new game's coming out, we're kind of play around with the world a little in crazy ways and kind of, so to speak, break everything because we're on the way out the door anyway, so let's have some fun with it. So, you might see a world boss spawn in the middle of Highstep. You might see, crazy stuff like that going down because, hey, why not? Let's have some fun on the way out the door. And it also ties into the story in a certain way too, but it's really just sort of like let's give the players something to do with all these resources they've gathered going into the expansion. Let's give them a chance to help us shape the story, and also let's just have some fun as, we're kind of saying goodbye to this version of the game. So all kind of rolled into one.
So, will Defenders of the Realm be an event that happens when it's scheduled, or is it something that's going to roll out over time for the, for the coming?
Right. It's not just one thing. It's not just Saturday at noon, be here, there's one thing going down. It's going to be a series of events that's going to last for a month. That's going to be, like I said, there's going to be sort of a progress bar that the entire server is going to contribute toward by doing activities and contributing resources. And then, like I said, there'll be sort of events going on in the world. And some of them are going to be, I think, involve dev interaction with the community, which is going to be really cool. So, yeah, it's going to be not just one thing. When I say it's coming out the 27th on the sprint roadmap, that really just means it's going to start the 27th. That's not awesome. The day it's going to happen. So
nice. Okay, so do you consider expert mode as the final expert mode raids? Is that the final in-game content for this version of Orbus?
Final in-game content for this version of the game. Yeah.
Okay. And so are you? And then I guess it ties into Defend the Realm. Are you planning on the last days before Reborn some kind of event, world-ending event near the end?
Yeah. I don't know. I'd love to do even more crazy stuff. We'll see. Obviously, we're prioritizing getting Reborn out the door, and that's where our resources are going. So, but I would love to do kind of here's something that happens right at the very end before we shut down these servers for the last time to transition us over, kind of like Final Fantasy XIV did. That'd be great. I can't 100% promise it'll be that spectacular as that because they have way more resources than we do, but we'll do our best. The other thing I think to keep in mind is beta testing on Reborn is going to start in pretty soon. I mean, it's going to be probably, I'm going to say like, I'm going to say probably early October is probably one of the. So I guess really it's like, if I was looking at a timeline of like the entire, like the community as a whole, taking into account both games, it's like you've got Defend the Realm at the beginning of September through like all of September, and then right after that, you're going to basically start beta testing the new game, and I assume that's what most people are going to want to be doing a lot of the time. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that no one want to play this game anymore, but I assume when there's beta test weekends going on for the new game, that's where the majority of the population is going to be spending their time. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to spend a ton of time and energy on making new content for this if everyone's going to spend every other weekend in a totally different world anyway. So
got you. Yep, and a lot of free tricksters chests though, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so I have a few community questions that were asked along the way. So a few people have wondered, and what we kind of wanted to know what goes into your process of testing new boss fights. Whenever you create a new boss, how do y'all test the fights internally?
Well, so basically, we have an internal team. We can't test it with 10 people right now because we don't have 10 people on the team internally that can all get out at the same time. So usually what we're doing when we're testing is we're testing out the mechanics themselves with like a team of 5 or 6 people, and we're making sure the mechanics are working. And then I'm doing, math to make sure that like when I think something's beatable, it should actually in theory be beatable. But that's also one of the reasons why with a MMO this size, we kind of have to rely on community feedback once it comes out to tell us, this is impossible. Nobody can do this. Okay, well, I mean, in theory it's possible, but if I believe you when you say it's not, and then we have to make changes or whatever. So, I'd like one of the things, and this is something I'd love community feedback on that I kind of struggle with is, should we do beta tests of raid bosses before they come out? I mean, I know like a lot of MMOs like WoW do that. On the one hand, it's going to make the release day way more bug-free. On the other hand, it turns release day into way less of an exciting, surprising deal and way more of a, we've already got our strategy down pat, let's just see who can get through it in an hour really quickly because we already know exactly what we're doing kind of a situation. So, but that's something I would love feedback on. I mean, if everybody is pretty much in agreement that they'd prefer to do beta testing on the raid fights first, I'm totally open to that. We just didn't do it this, first raid fight. Like I said, I wanted to kind of be more of a unique, interesting, surprising experience. But like I said, I'm open to changing that for sure. So yeah, but I mean, like I said, there's a lot I've learned. I mean, when it comes to the most advanced content in the game, like the high level shard dungeons and the raids, one of the things that I'm always trying to figure out is what are the parallels between regular MMOs like WoW and VR MMOs? I mean, you have to take into account physical fatigue. You have to take into account, like literally just sitting there doing something over and over again for 10 minutes straight. So that's something, like I said, I'm basically planning on getting a lot of feedback on that after we're sort of done with this raid cycle, and as we go into the Reborn raid cycle, just kind of do we want to see shorter fights? Do we want to see more challenging mechanics in the fights? Would that involve more movement or not? Do we want to see fights first? That's all the stuff I'm interested to hear from the community, because as far as I'm concerned, my job is basically to give you guys something fun to do. So I want to make sure that that's what we're doing. I mean, that's my job. So, I want to do whatever you guys think is fun. So
awesome. Yeah, you're doing a good job. And which another thing on there, we definitely don't want y'all to pick favorites, but would anyone in the dev team be willing to go on raids with groups that kind of have certain just to so y'all could see it in person, what the actual mechanics look like in practice to a group?
Yeah, I mean, I know some people brought that up on the forums before. I'm definitely willing to have dev team members go along and do that. One of the things I've been thinking about doing is creating some sort of tool where essentially we can monitor in an in-progress session, like a raid fight or even a dungeon fight, and just sort of invisibly watch and see what people are doing. I think that would be good not only from a anti-cheat perspective, but also from a we can see how people are really doing the fights perspective.
We joke that y'all do that already.
We do not have that capability currently, so I can look at the logs, but that's sort of like watching The Matrix, right? Like I can get a sense of what's going on, but I'm not actually seeing it in practice, so it's a little different.
Got you. But you could do like a pug with the devs where you set up a sign up, and then that way it's random people throughout the community, and y'all all run some content together.
Yeah, and that would be fun. That might be a fun activity. I don't know if that would really get to the heart of what some of the people on the forums have been asking about, which is they want us to kind of see the way their group is doing the fight, so we can kind of get a sense of how they're doing it and what it looks like in practice for them. But I think the invisible watching thing kind of gets around the, we're playing favorites system, and because we can kind of look at everybody's, throughout the day. But I also think, again, that's where sort of the beta testing comes in, right? I mean, if we have the beta testing and then, we can do more of that without feeling like we're, influencing how things are going to happen because we're just there to test it anyway. So it's like not for keeps, so to speak. Gotcha. So, but yeah.
Awesome. Okay. The majority. Okay. So a lot of the community, it seems as though there's a large, and I know this happens in a lot of games, but it seems like there's a very large number of beginner players that never get to the mid levels and then the upper levels, and that's where almost everybody agrees the funnest part of this game is once you hit like the mid levels and you really understand the basic mechanics, the game starts getting much more fun. Do you have a plan on fixing that in Reborn, or do you have like an idea of what you think the issues are with that?
Well, I completely agree that that's a major issue for us. We see the same thing in our statistics that basically, we have a lot of people that try the game, play for 10 hours maybe, and then, they just never really get into it. A lot of it has to do with, and this is not just us, this is any MMO. If you find a good group of people to play with or a guild, you're going to stick around because you want to see those people, play with those people, have fun with those people. If you don't find that, then you're much less likely to stick around and have a good time because it's no fun to just play by yourself for most people. So, the game, I think, is that this area, Highstep, does a really good job of concentrating everybody in the early levels and getting people to group up to do quests. But the farther down the path of leveling you go, the more time you're spending out in, the outer areas, away from everyone else. You're spread out. You don't run into people as often. As much as everyone complained early on about the quests making you go back and forth between Highstep and Guild City so much, I mean, that really causes you to run into people on the road. And I'm not saying we should do that again because I agree that was a little annoying, but I mean, that's the kind of thing. We need to do it in a way that's not annoying. Like, you're like, oh my God, I've already been here 8 times. But there has to be more opportunities in the world to make sure that people are going to run across each other's paths at different levels. In Reborn, I mean, we're going to tackle that in a number of ways. Level scaling is a big one. So in Reborn, essentially, outside of the max level content, you can essentially do anything in the entire world at any point, which means if I'm level 1 and you're level 10, we can still do stuff together, which will really help a lot with that, right? Because it's not like I can only play with the people who started playing the exact same time as me. In addition to that, Reborn's going to be a lot more about, there's going to be 6 main activity groups in the world, other than just your normal, going and kill monsters, and there's going to be public events. That's all designed around, I can go to Highstep, I can pick something to do, whether it's the airship party, encounters, whether it's dragon pet racing, whether it's monster hunting, and then I could hopefully find other people in Highstep that are getting ready to do the same thing, and we can go out together. And again, if you're level 15 and I'm level 5, great, we can still do it together, right? So we're really focusing on that, keep the players engaged, keep them grouped up, keep them socializing as much as possible, all the way through the leveling process to hopefully alleviate what you're talking about. So,
okay, and are you planning 10-man content for Reborn as well? And if you are, it seems like the guild cap is low for 10-man content. Is there any idea of raising the guild cap?
I would definitely, if that's the feedback, I would definitely consider it for sure. I don't know. I'm a little afraid of there just being one mega guild that everybody's in. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's not the end of the world that happens, but, I don't know how I feel about, there being 100-person guild running around that, literally,
gotcha.
75% of people are in. But, I mean, as you can see with the alphabet having 2 guilds that basically have the same name, it's not like we can stop it from happening either, even with this system. So I don't really know.
It kind of has existed. Even Ready Player 1, Ready Player 2, I think at one point Super Friends had 2 guilds. It seems like it's not a barrier, but yeah.
So yeah, that's certainly
25 seems arbitrary, and even with 25 people, having 10 of them on at one time can sometimes be difficult. Okay. So this was a community question. What is your favorite dad joke?
Dad joke? I have no idea.
Well, you can take on that one if you ain't got one. But
top of my head, I am a dad, so you think I would have? I think any joke I tell my kids is that by definition a dad joke. So, but I'm blanking on it right now. Yeah, sorry.
Do you have the Knuckles prototypes for the Vive?
I have actually 3 sets of them. So the Steam people have been very generous. They've sent us plenty of those. I have played around with it. the new Orbus VR Reborn has complete support for individual finger movement on the hands. So already in like the alpha version of Reborn, for example, on the touch, you can do thumbs up, you can do trigger pointing, you can do like not gripping but point. I mean, it has like the same level of interaction as like the Oculus Avatar hands do.
Awesome. So you can actually see other people's hands moving as well.
It's going to support that too.
Awesome.
And so that's all built in. And so when the Steam VR knuckles roll out, it'll be really easy for us to add that additional like finger by finger tracking. I would love to eventually use it in a really interesting, unique way in the game. But obviously, you know, we kind of have to design for like the lowest common denominator, right? Like you know, if we're making a class, I'd love to do like some kind of spellcast class where like your finger movements are what cast the spells, right? Sort of like if anyone's read the book The Magicians by Lev Grossman, I think is his name. You know, with the finger casting, that would be really cool. But you know, again, we can't design a whole class around that when only like 5% of people have those controllers. So
that's understandable.
For now, it's going to be mostly social and, you know, seeing other people do it, which will be cool. So,
do you see another Kickstarter in the future as a possibility?
I never say never to anything. I don't think that's the path we're heading toward. I think at this point, we have a pretty well-established reputation, and we're able to sell the game through Steam and Oculus well enough that I don't think we would ever need another Kickstarter campaign. I did consider doing like a collector's edition of Orbus VR Reborn, not as a Kickstarter campaign, but just as a like, they want to support the game a little more. We could sell something that's a little higher priced, even though it's a free update, and then you get like, you know, some in-game cosmetics or something for doing that, or you know, we can kind of. But so I would see us doing that perhaps, but I don't think we would ever go back necessarily to just like Kickstarter.
Gotcha.
So,
and so do you have 5 years from now? I know that seems impossibly far in the future, but where would you hope to see Orbus or wherever? I'm not even sure I forgot. I don't know the name of the development company, but where do y'all see y'all as a team in 5 years?
I mean, in my completely ideal world, we have a team of like 50 people. We're on pretty much every VR platform under the sun. So, you know, we're on PSVR, we're on PC, every PC platform, Windows Mixed Reality. We're on whatever new stuff comes out between now and then, standalone VR, whatever it is. And there's like 1 million people playing the game. I mean, that would be my ideal world. We're on like the 3rd expansion. You know, that would be my ideal world 5 years from now. But we'll see. I mean, so.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so finally to the meat and the potatoes of it. Let's get to Orbus Reborn. After 2 years of development, what made you decide that you would need to start over from scratch? How long ago was it, and what made you make that decision?
So I don't think we're necessarily starting over from scratch on the art assets for sure. But like the base level of foundation of the game, as far as, you know, I don't know, like, you know, we already have the 4 classes that are in the game, the way quests, you know, that's implemented, the basic monster. I mean, we're going to improve all of that, but like it's not like I'm throwing out the way that everything works at a base level and like we're starting from scratch on everything. But in terms of why did I decide we need to make like a complete, like a reborn instead of just an expansion? We were talking about it, like, as you know, we were talking about it even 6 months ago. So the game's only been out for 8 months? I mean, yeah. So like 2 or 3 months in, we were like, okay. So the feedback we're getting from people is they love the game. There's a lot of potential, but you know, the graphics could stand to be a lot better. There's, you know, some bugginess with the client. You know, the avatar system maybe needs a lot of love. You know, that was the feedback we were getting on, you know, the reviews on the forums. Then it just comes down to doing the math, cost benefit. Like, okay, well, we could try to just put out small updates over time to do those things. But then the other thing is, like, I think Orbus has gotten maybe a little bit of a reputation in some places, like on Reddit or on, you know, even Steam, let's say, for being, you know, some people consider it not that, you know, great looking, or it's, you know, they played in like the earliest versions of the game when it was in beta or even early access, and it was really buggy. And, you know, there's not still bugs now, but, you know, way worse back then. And so we kind of decided, like, this gives us an opportunity to hopefully reach out to those people who maybe gave us a shot and decided it wasn't for them and say, look, the game's brand new. We've changed a ton about it. This is your chance to dive back in and give it another shot. That's kind of the thinking there. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And, okay. what is the biggest changes that players should expect on day one that will that would be the biggest changes to what the player who's played a long time would see differently?
Oh my god! Well, let's see. Your avatar is going to look different. You're going to be able to. I mean, you guys have all seen the GIF, I'm sure, on the page for the game. So I mean, it's going to look totally different, and you're going to be able to customize it. That's going to be crazy. I mean, really, the overworld. I mean, you're going to start in a Highstep. I mean, it's got. Do not expect it to look anything like even the current Highstep, right? Like it looks totally different. Our internal, build of Highstep is already coming along, and I can tell you it looks nothing like this. It's been completely redone. The overworld's been completely redone. Seeing people walking around in different classes that are completely new, I mean, it's gonna be crazy. Yeah, it's gonna feel like a new game. I mean, it really is. When you walk into it for the first time, you're gonna be like, okay, I'm in a new game. You're not gonna feel like you're necessarily in this game.
Awesome. So why 20 years in the future?
Well, so we started with the plan of just redesigning zone by zone, and that's why we redid Highstep, and then we were going to do Guild City. And then I kind of sat down and I started thinking, I was like, if we're going to put all the art and, the resources into redesigning all these zones, this is an opportunity where we could just start from kind of like rethinking it over, completely rethinking it. Because, like the terrain you're standing in was literally just generated by like this magic tool I had. Like, it's not like I was like, I'm shaping each mountain but like that's literally what we're doing in the new game. Like literally in the new game, our 3D art environment person is going through and every single piece of the terrain is hand shaped. I mean, like nothing is through a tool, nothing is automated or just randomly generated. Everything has a purpose and a point to it, which just makes it so much better and, it's just so much, whoa.
Oh, and yeah, everybody disappeared.
Everybody disappeared from me too.
Yeah, I'm alone. Okay, well... Oh, and they're back. Everybody's bald, but back. And
dost thou know the procession of foul knowledge and unholy hex? I do.
Okay, and we're back. That was a magic trick, right, guys? Hey, everybody go hide behind the building so Riley thinks that everybody's gone again. Oh. Let me double check Discord. See if he's still in there. You there, Riley?
Hey there, Rejinx?
Hey, yeah, I'm back. Yeah. Everything.
So the server has a limited number of so every time somebody casts a spell or a monster spawns, it uses up a global ID, and there's only a limited number. So the zones restart, especially Highstep, like once a day. And I think everyone's just been casting so many spells right here that we kind of accelerated the process a little. So that's fine. Don't worry about it. But that's what happened there.
Cool. All right, then continue on. Okay, let's see. Where were we? Next is new classes. So see if we can squeeze some information out of you. Shamans.
Yeah, well, okay, so let me caveat on these. The reason I'm not sharing that information is because the first step in the class design is prototyping. And what I do is I create like lots of different little variations of each class, and I get in and I play them, and I go, okay, well, I think it's going to be fun to do this. Then I put it in, I try it out with like just really simple programmer art, and I'm like, that didn't really feel super good, or oh yeah, that's really satisfying. So I don't like to commit to things publicly till we've completed that process, because I don't want to say like, oh yeah, the shaman's going to have this really cool thing to do this, and then it turns out like, oh no, that really wasn't very fun. I took it out, and everyone's like, oh, you said it was going to be this. But the general idea of the shaman is that they have these totems like sort of on their, I think it's going to be on like a belt or something, and then they basically like can throw them onto the ground. They spawn there, and some of them are designed to be thrown like near enemies or just in the middle of the battlefield to like buff allies or to slow things down. And then others are meant to be put like right next to you, and they generate like these like basically spells, like they're kind of like fireball or frostball or whatever, and like you pick them up and you throw them at the enemy. So the thing I haven't figured out about that yet is throwing satisfying in VR? Does it work for all the controllers in VR? Is it going to be too tiring in VR? So like that's why I'm been kind of like, I don't want to commit to anything yet, because so it might actually be like you pick it up and you like blast it with your hand. That's the kind of stuff I have to play with and figure out what's going to work better. So, but yeah.
And so will animal farms be involved with shamans at all, or?
I hadn't really thought about making eternal animals, but that's certainly a good idea. I'll think about it. But no, that's not. I
think in the WoW version of shamans, I think.
Sure, you can turn into Ghost Wolf, and sure.
I just wasn't sure. So the bard, are you going to be? Is it an instrument? Is it a conductor's wand? Is the weapon?
Yeah. So. Here's the process I went through on the bard. My original thought was it's going to be literally an instrument you play. So like literally, I started with like at one point I tried a drum kit. So like you literally had 5 drums in front of you, and you had 2 drumsticks, and you literally would like try to like play the drums. But here's the problem: playing the drums in VR like that is just as hard as playing the drums in real life. And I literally went on like a website and I found like drum tabs for like really basic songs, or I like watched a YouTube video. It was like the simplest drum beat you can do with the hi-hat and everything. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And I would like get into my game and I would be like, okay, I'm just going to play this silly simple beat that involves 3 drums. And I was terrible at it. Like I was like god awful. I was like, this is impossible. You'd have to be like able to play the drums to do this. So I was like, well, that's not going to work. So then I tried like more of a xylophone layout. But I was going to do it as a marimba, which is sort of like a xylophone that's like wooden and like an African instrument, I think. So it sounds a little less like toy and a little more like a real instrument. That was okay, and you could kind of get a melody going, but I was just like, this isn't that satisfying. So then I was talking to my wife about it, and she has a friend who's a conductor, and she was like, why don't you try something with that? And I was like, well, that's interesting. Maybe instead of playing the instrument directly, you should like conduct the instruments. So the current prototype build, and again, I have to stress this is very early, and this may not be how it is in the final version of the game, but basically you have a series of lots of instruments to choose from that each play their own little musical loop, but all sound good together as well, if that makes sense. And so you deploy like up to 3 of them, and then you literally have a conductor baton in your hand, and you have to like, keep a beat as a conductor. And then there's going to be sort of a concept of like using your hand to do like a crescendo, like at a specific instrument, and that causes it to have a certain effect. So that's going to be like you're keeping a beat, you're throwing out lots of instruments and keeping them in sync, and then like you're crescendoing certain instruments at certain times that it plays. Now, again, that may not be how it ends up being, and it's pretty fun the way it is right now, I think. So awesome. We'll see what happens, but that's the current plan. So
cool. Okay. And I know you're not announcing your other 2 classes yet, but are you planning on all 4 classes being playable and available on release of Reborn?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. I thought you were going to ask me if they were all going to be playable in the first beta test, which I was going to say probably not. But yes, they will definitely all be in before release, all 4 names. So there'll be 8 total classes to play when Reborn comes out. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And so you talked about Highstep being more of a hub town. In fact, I think even in your original interview, you talked about wanting a hub system almost. So is the Reborn going to be more similar to Diablo or Torchlight, where you have a hub town and then all of your dungeons and stuff will radiate out from a single town? Is that the plan?
I don't know 100% yet. It's definitely going to be more of a... I mean, Highstep is already kind of the central hub in the game. I mean, I actually thought it would be more like Guild City. It never worked. I mean, that's which is fine. So we're just embracing it. We're like, okay, look, everybody hangs out here anyway. So, let's just put everything, that to start your activities all like right here. So like when you want to talk to the guy who tells you to go do X, Y, and Z, you're probably going to start in Highstep. There's kind of like this concept I had of like expeditions. So it's like you start in Highstep, you decide what you're going to do, you get your group together, and then you go on an expedition to go do the thing you're going to do, then you come back when you're done, and then you kind of like rinse and repeat that. Like but it's not a hub city, like it's not like Destiny where it's, it's still going to be just like this, where like you can just walk down the stairs and walk across the whole world if you want to, right? It's not like Destiny where it's like you have to like, go to the hub city and then, yeah, exactly. It's still going to be like this. Okay. Right. We're just going to make it a lot more like, I would expect there to be like 3 or 4 Highsteps going at any given point because there'll be several hundred people hanging out in Highstep, hopefully. That's kind of the idea. We're also going to put more to do in Highsteps. Oh, sorry, that's my dog. It sounds like he's having a heart attack. So we're gonna. So for example, there'll be like fun little mini games to play in Highstep. It's just gonna be more of kind of like a combination of like a social hangout. And so again, we have like the tavern. Oh my gosh, hold on. Are you okay? What are you doing? Okay.
I'll be honest. I'm surprised I haven't had to stop you because my 3-year-old hasn't run in here and started screaming. And
Yeah,
same thing happens here. Continue.
That's okay. So we had like the Lakewood Inn, and that was kind of like originally we're like, oh yeah, people will go hang out there. Maybe we'll put like a tavern game in there, and it's So I think we're like, okay, why are we putting like 4 different places to do stuff? Let's just have it in Highstep. That's where everyone's hanging out anyway, and then we'll make that gives us more, so we can put the public events out in the world. We don't need to put like 5 other cities out in the world. So it's kind of the thinking.
Gotcha. So okay, will the sharding system for high traffic areas be the exact same as it is in this game? In the current.
We're going to make it much easier to switch shards. So instead of it being like, I have to be in the same part, it's going to be like literally, there's 4 Highstep shards, A through, D. I want to be on B because that's what my friend's on pick. And as long as there's, sufficient room, I can just move over. So it's going to be more like that. So.
Okay. Let me see. Healing numbers and combat logs in Reborn.
There'll definitely be healing numbers the same way there are damage numbers. I am like 85% sure that there's also going to be some way that you can start getting actual damage and healing numbers from a log. Like there'll be like sort of a log that, you can parse after combat and, you took damage from this ability on this monster and it was 1,000 hit points or whatever. And that, because not only does that help us test wise with you guys, but it also gives you a lot more tools to figure out what's going on in fights and stuff. So a really good example of that is on Raid Boss 3 on the expert mode. It took everybody a long time to figure out that one mechanic. I think that would have been really a lot more obvious if you could have seen you're probably a little, I'm kind of just judging. The health bars moved a little, but if you could see, we took exactly 10% less damage there on that attack, what was different, right? Then that would be a lot more obvious. So some of it's that driven by that too. So
awesome. Yep. I think it's definitely something people, we're asking for. So you kind of already touched on it about premium packages or other forms of revenue in Reborn. You may do a special edition.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not committing that 100%. We'll see what we have time to do, but I would consider doing it for sure if there's interest.
So in the future, you still plan on the in-game store and most of your future revenue to be from expansions? Paid expansion?
That's the plan. Yep. Mm-hmm. So we'll have the cosmetic store, and that's been really successful. We'll keep expanding that and adding new things to that. New mounts. New pets. Eventually, probably we'll add maybe some hairstyles and stuff for the new avatar system, things like that. And then the next expansion after Reborn will be a paid expansion, I'm sure. So it'll be like a regular MMO expansion. So.
All right, and so dragon racing. Is it going to be active racing where we're almost like flying a drone or something? Or is it going to be more stat-based and breeding and watching them race each other?
The plan is that basically you take control of your dragon and you fly as the dragon through a little obstacle course. So there'll be these little obstacle courses spread throughout the world, and you take your dragon to them, and then you basically you get a time, and then you can collect little bonus things as you fly through it. That promises this definitely not be a launch. Long term, I basically want this to turn into Mario Kart. I want it to be you could have 4 dragons racing at the same time, and you can do stuff and get power ups and shoot a fireball breath at your opponent to knock them down or something. But when it launches, it'll basically be more of a solo activity. I mean, you can watch other people do it, which it's essentially it'd be if we were all standing around and there was a little dragon thing right here. And I was we were all watching, little dragons flying around through an obstacle course. That's kind of the idea.
Okay,
so
cool. And tell us something surprising that you haven't mentioned at all about Orbus Reborn.
Well, if I want to do that, I would have said it already. No, let me think if there's anything I can say. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not thinking of anything off the top of my head.
Well, maybe something you just haven't said in the interview, because I know you've been answering a lot of questions in the forums.
The tidbit about I feel like the tidbit about the hands was a pretty good tidbit. So, like I said, they're much more interactive now, and you could see. I hadn't mentioned that in a blog post or anything yet.
Nice.
So I think that'll be really nice.
Oh,
Yeah, no.
Rickness wanted to know, so currently in the transmog closet, there's a cape called the Cape of Completion. Is that anything about that?
So I think there might be two. I want to say there's two capes currently that you guys can see that they're you will have access to those before this game expires. There will be ways to achieve both of those capes. So.
Awesome. And is there anything I didn't ask you that you really wanted to talk about?
No, we talked a lot about it. We talked about Reborn and the current game.
All right, then I think we're I'm gonna have to unleash the masses on you, and we'll get back in game and maybe answer some questions.
I can't. I'm not. I'll. You just tell me what they. I don't know. Let me see. I can try to get it going again. Let's see what happens. Voice turned up.
Because I actually can't hear anybody either. I've been keeping it. Let me unmute.
That's what I'm doing. I'm muting everyone now.
Somebody say hi. I don't hear anybody talking.
Hi. I heard somebody say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
There we
I hear
go.
people talking now. I'm still working on unmuting everybody. Hold on. Okay.
Alright, I'm back.
Yeah, I was just using where you hit the two menu buttons in it.
Oh. Hello.
Hi. Okay, I think we're ready to go. All right.
All right.
Who's got questions?
I'm actually going to leave Discord so I don't hear echoes.
We can't hear Rejinx, by the way, in game, so... You
heard him the whole time?
No, but we could still
make
make
out
out
the whole time.
I have a question. For you, Riley. So you are going... Here, one second. I gotta mute this piece. Okay, so you are going to Oculus Connect here very soon. Is there anything, that you haven't told us, or something special you're concocting to show the people at Oculus Connect? Because I was debating, hey, should I buy a ticket and make a road trip and grab some of the guildies and come see you?
Oh my
God! Expensive. Is there something you're cooking up to show all the developers out there? Hey, maybe you guys should invest in what we're doing. Look at this. It's a world's first.
Yeah, well, we're doing so Oculus invited us. They're doing a new thing at Oculus Connect this year called Developer Meet and Greet, and essentially what that is they're going to give us a booth out on the main convention floor where people can come up and get a 5 to 10 minute demo of the game, and we can basically walk them through it. And so it'll be press, other developers. If there are people, consumers who are there who are just interested in VR, then they'll be able to check it out. My plan right now is to bring a alpha version of Reborn to that. So essentially, it will be Reborn. You'll be able to get in there. I think you'll be able to make your character, play a little bit against the new enemy AI, and then also possibly do the dragon racing. And again, you're only gonna play for 5 or 10 minutes. So I don't know if it's worth buying a ticket and driving all the way over there. Just
Mike broke out.
Yeah, Mike broke out.
Oh, okay. Well, so I basically said that it's just going to be that 5 to 10 minute demo of Reborn. So I don't know if it's worth it or not. I will say we are also planning on going to PAX. The one that's not the one that's in January. And I think we're going to end up having a pretty. I don't know. It's still in the works, but it's possible we're going to have a somewhat of a presence there. And if that happens, then we will be bringing the full version of Reborn to that, because that would be
that would be very cool.
That would be pretty
cool. If I was picking one to go to.
Whoa, mic cut out.
Your mic cut out again.
Quit firebolting. We don't hear you.
Party! Quick, cast its spells on him.
Did you catch that, PAX?
Oh, there we go.
No, there we go.
We're back.
Okay, well, so we're going to PAX in January, most likely. And if I was going to go to one, I'd go to that one. So.
Okay. Cool.
Nice.
Anybody next?
Love your game.
I do.
Who said that? I could hear someone.
I think Crazy did.
Meg.
Oh, no.
Meg.
Aphex right here has a question. He has his hand up, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
What do you envision this game to be?
I can't hear him.
What do I envision it to be, in general?
I muted him.
Well, I think it's a fun thing to do with other people in VR. For me, MMOs are about shared challenges. That's really my main. When I want to play WoW, I want to go do dungeons with my friends and overcome a challenge together. That's really what drives me to play MMO. And I know not everybody's the same. Everybody has different things to get out of it, but that's what it is for me. So I always want the game to provide that at its core. I want it to be there are challenges you can tackle in the world, whether that's dungeons or whatever it is that you can do socially with other people, with your friends or friends you make in the game. So I think that's really what I mean.
Oh, okay.
I got another one.
I have a
It's
question.
really quick. Oh, go for it. Go
Hold on. Let's
no,
I think
okay.
Meg had a question and was waiting. So let's go to Meg.
So my first question is, it seems like the game clearly relies very heavily on Discord, especially for voice, as has been pretty apparent tonight. Is there a plan to make that better, or maybe even make better chat groups or something?
Like the in-game voice chat, you mean?
Yeah, we can be... I can be in a party of a couple of people, and we're playing, and we're all happy, and then suddenly most of us can't hear one person.
Yeah. Voice chat over the internet is really hard. Put that out there. It is not easy to do. We're one of the only VR games that actually, I think, does our own and doesn't rely on the Steam or the Oculus API to do it. So I always wanted to get better, and I'll definitely put a lot of time in on that before Reborn for sure, because I want it to be as flawless as it possibly can be. So yeah, I mean that's all I can really say about that is, I mean, I want it to work, yeah. So. Did you have another question?
My dog. Oh yeah. The other question that I had was, I know that you guys are a small group, and I think a lot of people who actually play VR games, like myself, are in the IT world. If there's anything that we can do to help out with all of the stuff that you guys do, is there any way that we can kind of assist?
You mean other than just playing the game and reporting bugs and supporting us that way? I don't know. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now. I do love it when people, I know there's some wiki projects going on that are documenting the game for new players. I mean, that's always super helpful, that kind of stuff. So if you're into that. Some people have started creating tools. So I know that there's somebody who created a market tool. And then there's PvE ranking tools. I mean, that stuff's always helpful too, because that's one less thing I have to do, and that's something the community can use. But I mean, when it comes to the core game systems, I mean, it's never. I don't think we're ever going to reach a point where I'd be comfortable saying, okay, well, we're just going to open source the whole project or something.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, I don't.
No, totally.
So.
Well, if you ever need a data protection or storage engineer, let me know.
All right. I don't know if that's probably higher, number 35 in our grand plan for domination. Yeah.
Turn around.
Oh, I'm being lured into a corner. What could go wrong?
Orvain, question.
Yes, Rory.
Yes. Okay, so I heard you talking earlier about capes and all that stuff before basically being able to get everything before this update comes out. Is anything going to be exclusive, kind of a show that we supported this game earlier on versus later, or is everything going to be carried over as well, items wise?
Oh yeah. I mean, my guess is most of the capes will not make a comeback in terms of ability to capture them in the new game. I mean, I can probably sit down and make a list of the specific ones. I think the armor might, like I said, come back and essentially if we do the shard dungeons as a retro event, then obviously the shard gear would be available.
That's a great idea
for transmogs. Yeah. But I think cape wise, we've always seen the cape slot as the achievement slot. So that's one I feel pretty comfortable being yeah, you can't get every cape in the game if you do it at the beginning, but those are the achievement slots, so that's kind of okay in my opinion.
Okay.
So, but yeah.
And part two of that question from Meg, what's the best way to report these bugs? Would that be the Reddit page or the Orbus community page?
I mean, the forums are definitely the best place to report bugs, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I am working on getting a better, more standardized bug reporting system like Mantis or something set up so that when we start OrbusVR beta testing, it's more organized and you guys can see the public bug lists and stuff. So by the time we start the beta testing for Reborn, I'll have that ready to go. But for now, yeah, the forums are the best place to report bugs.
Okay.
What's going on here? So,
oh my gosh. Okay, so many questions.
Everybody had his hand up, I think.
Okay.
It's kind of related to what you were just saying about Reddit and where to ask, is that most games in VR, honestly, people look hardcore into Reddit in the subreddits to get information, which is very rare in this game. Like, it's all about, like, oh, you got to go onto Discord. And a lot of people don't have Discord. So it would be cool if you guys show more attention to Reddit, I guess you would say. Because all the devs pretty much say, like, oh, don't post here, post on Discord. And, like, legit, a lot of people don't even know what Discord is.
Okay, well, I'll definitely take that into advisement. I mean, I'm on Reddit a lot, and I think, especially like in the Vive and Oculus subreddits, if there's a post on Orbus, you'll usually see me show up in some capacity to talk about it. Even if it's a negative post, I try to show up and be like, hey, thanks for the feedback, or, we're working on it, or, engage with them in some way. But, yeah, I mean, we can certainly work on making our, OrbusVR subreddit a more, active post for sure. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that honestly would help a lot.
Okay.
Especially for new people to the game.
Yeah.
I know, you Kyle had it.
It's okay. You mentioned your wife earlier, and you said something like she had an idea. Do your kids ever have input in your game? Like, do you use their artwork or anything?
Oh, no, we haven't done anything with the kids yet. My son is starting to learn how to code his first game. He's 7.
Oh my gosh.
He's making like a Pokemon clone. With a program called I can't remember. It's a thing off of MIT.
Your kid father.
Nope. Your mic.
Mic cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
There you go.
I was saying he's using something that's based on like the MIT sketch stuff, but I can't remember exactly what it is. It's something newer than that, but I'm blanking on the name right now. But no, we haven't used any of the artwork in the game. They do ask me all the time, like we'll be at the dinner table and they'll be like, "What did you add to your game today?" So they're always asking me stuff about it, which is funny. So
I got a question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the PvP in the game, and how do you feel about PKers?
How do I feel about PKers? I mean, I'm indifferent.
And the PvP in the game.
Part of the game.
Yeah. For PKers in particular, I mean, I kind of decided that we would leave that to the community. That was kind of why we did the orange name thing. And, if the community cared a lot about it, they could care about it. But I wasn't going to enforce any rules that punish people for doing it other than the bandit system. That said, I think the PvP in the game has not gone the way that I hoped it would have gone. It hasn't been as active as I probably would have hoped. And that's totally on us. I'm not saying that has anything to do with you guys. That's the mechanics and the bandit system didn't work out how we wanted to. The new Orbus VR Reborn stuff, the PvP is going to be much more focused around, like I said, opt-in world PvP for people who want to participate in it, getting bonuses. Like if you guys have played the new WoW with the war with the
you got that 10% buff.
Yeah, it'll be so yeah. Like you might get bonuses when you harvest resources. You might get more than one resource. You might get a bonus to your XP. So there'll be reasons to turn the PvP in the world, and then you'll have to feel bad about killing people because it's like, hey, you signed up for this, right? Like it's not like you're just oh, I was just trying to do what I wanted. I didn't want to get shot at. At the same time, I think battlegrounds are a big missing piece that we don't have right now because a lot of people want more of a structured competitive activity to do, and they want to be able to rank up their honors, rank, and they want to be able to, do that kind of stuff. So I think having that in the game will also be a big help.
Okay. So
I'll do that one.
You obviously play World of Warcraft. You
I'm playing a ton of World of Warcraft right now with the new
so you as well as I do that add-ons are a huge thing in World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Do you see in the near future for your new expansion, not right now, add-on support? Because I know you guys are doing something in regards to like a DPS or something we can parse, because that's huge in guilds, right? Like you want the best DPS, you want the best tanks. But are you going to be throwing support in there for some community-made add-ons?
I'm torn on this because I do play a lot of WoW. I also played a lot of Final Fantasy XIV back in the day, and they don't really do add-ons on Final Fantasy XIV.
Right.
And I feel like WoW has become enslaved to its add-ons, right? Like they were such a part of the early experience, and they literally, the design team will tell you, we design the boss fights assuming everyone has DDM, right? Like, like that we do that assuming everyone has DDM. You could not do these fights without DDM, so they're designing
DDM's huge.
Yeah, so on the one hand, I get that add-ons are huge, but on the other hand, it's like, I would never, as an MMO designer, want to reach a point where I'm like, well, I'm assuming this thing that doesn't even come with the game is what everybody in top-end rating guilds is using anyway, and you have to have it to do the content, right? That's kind of stupid. So, I don't know. I guess that's why I'm kind of hesitate to open up those floodgates because I take to the point where it's like oh well you have to have this add-on or you can't go on the shard dungeon run because like it's required because everybody has it now, right? So I think having the output logs that you can parse into DPS meters is a
cut out. Mike broke out again.
Cut out, bro.
Yeah, you cut out.
Okay,
after you said DPS meters.
Yeah, we're back. Okay. I was just saying that I think the DPS meters are a good place to start, and then we'll kind of see where it goes from there. So.
Okay, thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to add any type of subscription services, like $5 a month or something like that, to help cover server costs?
I don't really want to. We'll see. I mean, at some point we may start charging for some, at some point we could start charging for, name changes or, I don't know, weird stuff like that if we wanted to draw some extra cash that way. But, I mean, I'm all in favor of subscription revenue. Obviously, my other company I'm involved with, Roll20, that's how we make our money, and it works really well for that company. But with our primary goal with this game is to get a lot of people playing, and so that's why. And I know that it could be optional and all that, but I would even just hate for somebody to like go to the webpage and be like, "Oh, there's a subscription." Okay, I don't want to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
it does drive away a
that's
lot.
why we've kind of gone with the buy once model for now. So,
are there any plans to get this on PS4? Because the PlayStation VR market would be big for this.
There are definitely plans in the works to make that happen long term. Yeah, for sure. That's one of the main reasons we're doing Reborn. Other than it needs to be done, is we are controlling the polygon count and the try budget and all that, so that we can eventually get on some of these other platforms that have much more restrictive budgets. So that's we're definitely, as we're doing all these assets for the new game, we're like, okay, here's we have to think about in the future. We might want to go on PSVR, so let's make sure we're staying below this level, and that means it'll run way smoother on PC too, right? So it benefits everybody, but we're definitely long term looking toward that.
Thank you.
More graphic settings in the future?
Yeah, there'll be more. Yeah, you'll have a lot more individual control over things like anti-aliasing and view distance and LOD levels, all that stuff. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I like to run the game low, too laggy.
Yeah.
Airbag, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I know this is like beating a dead horse, but is there any way to like get a vote on this mage armor, the new one that's so gigantically fat? Like, can we slim it down just a little bit? Just pretty much everybody just transmogs it the second they get it.
I mean, I'll pass that along to the 3D artist. I don't know that we'll modify it at this point, since, like I said, at this point we're more focused on the new gear we're making for the new game. But I will definitely take that into account for the new stuff we're designing. I'll be like, everybody didn't like this, so let's not do that in the new.
But if he left it, the new players in the new expansion, they might look at you and be like, "Whoa, where'd you get that?" Well, this is a vanilla thing,
So maybe it'll be worth something then, right? You'll be like, "I love this because it's unique." So yeah.
Oh, hey, auction house, maybe.
Oh yes.
Yeah, we're definitely going to make changes to the way that the market stall system works and add additional options for people to sell stuff that don't have stalls. I don't know if it's going to be, and I kind of talked about this on the forums, like it might be some kind of hybrid system where it's like certain things can be sold in the auction house and certain things can only be sold in stalls to kind of still get them. Because I love the stalls. Like I love the fact that we're one of the only MMOs that has that as a mechanic in the game. I get that though. Beginner friendly, a minimum month to sign. Even if you have all the money, you have to wait a month to get one, which kind of kills it for people. There's problems with it, so it's hard to find stuff. So I kind of want it to be like maybe stalls are like the high end specialty shops or something, and then like you want that really special dragon, to go to this guy's stall. But like if you're just buying random healing potion for the raid tonight, you don't have to go and pick it out of the stall or something. That's kind of my thinking, but it's not nailed down yet. So.
Actually, after interviewing you for an hour, I forget about to ask about this one. So specialty items. So currently the armor set, the gear system is very, very simple. All gear just has the same stats, or maybe met, and there's nothing real. And you have affixes, but they're all random. Are you thinking of special boss items in the future that drop from only special bosses and
I
stuff
mean,
like
that's something
that.
I'm interested in feedback. I mean, something I'm interested in feedback on. You know, so yeah, there's kind of the Diablo 3 system. It's kind of the system we have right now, in my opinion, which is basically anything random can drop from anywhere. That's nice because you can do whatever activity you want, essentially, in a lot of ways, right? Like, you know, I mean, we kind of got locked in with, like, the shard dungeons, and maybe that was a mistake, but it's kind of the idea that if I want to go do this, I can still get gear for it, right? But I don't have to just lock in. I don't have to go to this one boss over and over again to get this one special trinket I need, right? I can go do whatever I want. So it gives you more flexibility. But then you have less control over, you know, getting specific items.
It needs to be a little different, though.
Well,
like, have
I
it
did hear that with your
certain
potions
bosses
have
drop
helped a
certain
lot.
loot, so that people can't farm the same boss over and over and over again just to get
Like a lockout system.
Okay,
Is that what you're
that's a
saying?
fair point. Yeah. So like, if you can do raid boss 1 on hard mode, you'd only be able to get like, you know, just the pants or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be like that.
Something I can say about doing the armor. Speaking of that, in the new game is, we're not going to do leveling gear because we're gonna have 8 classes now. Well, sorry, am I not talking? Can you guys hear me now?
You're fine.
No, you're
okay. Since we're gonna have 8 classes, we're not gonna be able to do leveling gear that's specific to each class. So we're just like, that's just not gonna happen. So what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna do more of like a cloth leather plate kind of a deal, and each class will have its assigned slot. But then.
Oh, now you broke up.
You cut out.
Okay,
I'll be back.
But then for the raids, we're gonna have like a class set for each class that's specific to that class. So you know, if you're the conductor, you'll be able to get the conductor set.
Wrist armor.
Wrist slot.
Yes.
Wrist armor, yeah.
Probably.
Sweet bracelets of doom.
Give us a watch.
Yeah, what's it about? It's called I got ambitious when I was setting up the slots, and then we ran out.
Even if it's cosmetic, not that
I want to keep a lifetime Rolex
Sweet
watch.
bracelets of doom.
I need pants.
I really
like
like
maybe buying it in the cosmetic shop, just something cosmetic.
Yeah, I really like the I like the Destiny armband. If you guys have played Destiny, I think that's actually a really cool slot. So that was actually what I was thinking with that slot. If we do something like that, so I think that'd be cool in VR. So
You should give us a watch.
Oh, what do you guys think?
Yeah,
It
tell us real time. That'd be pretty cool.
Okay, hold on.
Time play.
Just check time.
Yeah, you're right.
What? Sorry, what did you say?
I said.
Uh-oh. So everything went quiet on my end. I don't know if it did for y'all. So I'm gonna log back in. Yeah, I can't either. Let me log back in.
Again in the next 6 months. My guess is we'll hire another developer. I'm not 100% sure. So we'll always announce all hiring on the blog if it's available. So
You guys need a guy that eats pizza and takes naps. I'm your man.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. One more question.
Many references.
You got one, Rory?
Yeah. Okay, so every class basically has its like support role and everything, and I get that like Archer has range, but Archer doesn't really have anything for up close, and we're also still locked in like movement. So is there any like intention to like I don't know, either upgrade the trap that the Ranger has, or like give us faster combat movement, like how in Diablo, how the Ranger can kite?
I'm thinking the Ranger kiting is a possibility. I can tell you that the trap will definitely not work the same at all either. So that at least is
So while we're on the Ranger thing, off 5 expert mode, the Hell Demon it just hits far too hard. You've got no way to get away from it, and you just
His mic broke out. I heard Hell Demon in one hit.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Your mic's cut out.
He died.
So,
Yes!
thanks everybody.
No, we lost
We're going to stop the recording right now. Everybody, wave to the camera, which is me.
Hi, me.
Hey, I'm gonna
Plus
look at this
25,
here.
plus 25 luckless pieces for everybody.
Yes, thanks, Susan.
We're gonna look back at this from the new content stuff. Like, what are we looking